she's a pioneer. You know, she's, throughout all the time, throughout her career, she's pushed UK MMA, at least the women's side of it, more than anyone else. You know, people look at her now as the voice of women's MMA in the UK, maybe not, maybe even in Europe, whether it be the way she conducts herself or has conducted herself throughout her time in the MMA scene, whether it be her qualifications, her degrees, a PhD, you know, or achievements inside the cage. You know, I think when she speaks, you know, people listen and people respect what she says. She's smart, she's articulate, and she can fight.
I always say I fought on Cage Warriors 1, so I've been with Cage Warriors longer than anyone else here. I mean, it's been an incredible journey, really, seeing how Cage Warriors has evolved, how the sport as a whole has evolved, and you know, going from that show, which was a few hundred people at the York Hall. You know, this was back in the dark ages of mixed martial arts, before anyone really knew about it. This was before The Ultimate Fighter. It was before, you know, people were watching UFC on Sky, and before you could get the magazines in WH Smith's and, you know, all these things. So to see it develop over the years and to see what it's become, it's been incredible, and it's been great to be a part of that journey. My first few fights back in the early days, I mean, this was before women's mixed martial arts really existed in this country. I mean, it was almost the very first women's fights over here, and I mean that struggle of trying to get opponents and trying to put the match on. But I remember the one thing about Cage Warriors is they've always been very positive about women's mixed martial arts. You know, even back in the early days, right from the word go, they've been positive about presenting female fighters as athletes just like the guys, you know, and I think that's something that's stuck with the brand. And then I think almost the breakout performance of my career, I think, was when I fought Dina van den Hoeven for the Cage Warriors title on Night of Champions back in Coventry in 2005.
She is the one, the only, the biggest female fight in the UK. That's it for Rosi Sexton!
Here we go, so Rosi Sexton coming in, and I think Ian said it very well then. Rosie's probably recognised as the #1 UK female fighter.
And that was the first fight I had after Lewis was born. So he was born in April, and I fought for the title in November. And I think, in a way, that was the first real test for me as a fighter. She was coming off a big knockout win over a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter. In fact, the only woman to ever beat Cyborg. And Dina had just knocked her out. That was her previous fight. And I was going to the fight knowing that she'd been tearing up the grappling circuit in Europe. You know, she was doing really well in her MMA career. She's probably a bit bigger than me, and I was coming back after over a year out of the sport. This was my first fight back, so it was a big one for me.
Rosie was the first fight out. She came out to Ready or Not by the Fugees, and it hit you. You know, she came out second, and the crowd, you know, that would have been indifferent, I guess, maybe a few years ago. They really caught the attention of all the crowd, and like, you know, there was noise, and you know, it was a great fight, 3 rounds. You know, Van der Hoeven didn't come out, I think, for the 4th or for the 3rd, off the top of my head. And Rosie won, and you know, that was a big win. I mean, it was already difficult to get Rosie fights. There was a scene in the States and there was a scene in Japan, but you know, nobody was ever going to fly anyone over, and no UK promoter was going to go and spend thousands of pounds on flying over an American or Japanese fighter for a woman. You know, they weren't really going to do it for the men unless they were a massive ticket seller or, you know, or whatever. So you're not going to do it for a female. But we put on like a really solid European fight in a day when those fights weren't really happening unless you had tens of thousands, you know, unless you had someone like an Anderson Silva or a Lee Murray or a Shudo Box guy or something like that. And, you know, it felt good. You know, you felt like there was a little bit of history going on there. I think from that night on, really, you know, Cage Warriors as a company really, and Rosie, you know, really did bond. That was the moment where the bond was there, but it's when it was cemented, and it was more than just your average promoter-fighter relationship. This was, you know, this was between two entities that, yeah, there was mileage in it, and I think we all felt we could, you know, we wanted to do more. But the irony was, you know, Rosie wasn't to fight again after that date for another 5 years on Cage Warriors.
There weren't really that many women competing in Europe at the time, so I went on. I fought on Bodog, on Elite XC, Bellator, and it was after Graham Boylan took over as CEO of Cage Warriors. That's when I came back to fight on Cage Warriors again, and I think it was one of the early shows in Cork, and I fought Sally Krumdiak there, and again that was that fight meant a lot to me because I'd been through a bit of a rough patch at the time, so again being able to come back and been given the opportunity to headline that card, because I mean that was the first time I'd headlined a card, and to, you know, to fight an international level opponent, you know, back in Europe again after fighting in the States for quite a while. It was so it felt like coming home.
I think without a doubt Rosie's been a big part of, you know, the revival of Cage Warriors, and you've got to give Graham Boylan a lot of credit for that. You know, who else would put a female fight in the main event of the second show he promoted? You know, there we are, Cage Warriors. We just done a show in October 2010. You know, Graham Boylan's first show in London. You know, where there's a big community of MMA, and the second show is in Cork. You know, mainly a Muay Thai town. No, hardly any MMA gyms there or fighters. And he goes and tries to put the same kind of show he would in London out there. Sure, there was, you know, obviously there's a strong Irish presence, but you're putting Rosi Sexton, you know, a woman from Manchester, in a main event against an American. I mean, in a way that's crazy. But it also showed, I think, the faith that he had in Rosie, and the faith he had in the brand, that Rosie, you know, could make something happen. And, you know, she fought Sally Krumdiak less than 6 months coming off what was a pretty horrific knockout, you know. And Rosie had I think a lot to prove to people and to herself, and, you know, she flew for it.
After the Sally Krumdiak fight, I fought Roxanne Modafferi in London, and again, I mean, that was the first time I'd fought in the UK since that fight in Coventry back in 2005. So I'd been away for a while, and at the time, Roxanne was one of the ranked fighters at 135 pounds. She'd been doing quite well in the division, and again, it was another big fight for me.
It was a great fight for internet geeks like me everywhere. You know, Roxy's got a great internet fan base, and in a kind of way, it was kind of hard watching two people that you really like, you know, really respect fight. But then that's kind of what Cage Warriors does. You know, we want to put on, you know, good fights with good people that are going to bring something different. And, you know, it was great having that fight on. And again, you know, Rosie was caught in quite a bit of trouble. There was, you know, Roxanne had some great submissions on her, but, you know, Rosie rode it out. And the funny thing was, the London crowd, they really respected it as well. They, you know, they appreciate it. They saw that decent MMA, and they were there. And like both fighters, you know, I'm not going to use the word mobbed, but do you know what I mean? They got a lot of attention afterwards from the fans, and, you know, it was great. And that sort of led to then more female fights happening on Cage Warriors, which I think is brilliant.
I won that one. Went on, fought Ashton Daly in Dublin. which obviously with her being the Irish girl, you know, I was expecting that to be a bit of a hostile crowd. But actually, I think with it being a Cage Warriors event, it felt very friendly. You know, even though I was fighting the Irish girl in Ireland, you know, it felt like there was a lot of support there from everyone, and people really just wanting to see a good fight. So I think that was my last fight for Cage Warriors before, and then after that, I got a call from the UFC. At one point I never thought I was going to get a chance to do that, because there was a time when nobody believed that the UFC were going to have a women's division. And I'd been watching the show, you know, since I started, you know, back in 2002, and go all that way, and then to finally have it so close and sort of say, well, there's a women's division there. I really felt that if I retired without giving it a shot, I would always regret it. And so I go, okay, well, let's do this. And I've got some great memories from those fights, you know, just being around the big show and that environment and getting to meet some of these people that I've been watching my entire career, that it always seemed like distant idols, if you like, and suddenly I'm sharing a warm-up room with them. Yeah, I remember, I think, sharing a workout room with Dan Henderson, and you know, going, holy shit, this is happening. And yeah, so yeah, there was a lot of good stuff that came out of that, you know, and I learned a lot from the process of doing it. And there was a lot that was very difficult as well. It's very intense. It's very intense, and like I say, while I'm very glad that I had that whole experience, and while I'm very glad I did it, I think by the end of the year, I really felt like, okay, I've had enough. I don't want to do this anymore. And I'd almost fallen out of love with the sport, if you like, I could say. I thought, okay, but it's time to move on here. I've done what I'm going to do, and to move on. And I think it was shortly after that I kind of came back to Cage Warriors, if you like, and I'd been doing some work. I've been talking to Graham and to Ian about the women's divisions that they were introducing with Cage Warriors, and in fact they got in touch with me sort of the middle of last year to talk about it, and sort of talk about possible women they might sign, and you know, I was helping them out in terms of putting that division together a little bit. And I think that for the show in February, it was Laura Howarth Amanda Kelly fight, which was one that I was particularly interested in. So I said to Graham, how do you feel about me doing commentary for that fight? And he goes, yeah, all right then. And I did that, and it was great to be involved. You know, it was great to see that, to see Cage Warriors kind of showcasing those women and the work they were doing to build that women's division, and to give the European women those opportunities to compete on the bigger stage. It was something that I just wanted to be part of. So it sort of developed from there, really. I went to a few of the other shows, did a little bit of commentary, and sort of gradually over time, there's something about the atmosphere with Cage Warriors that slowly I just started to fall back in love with the sport again.
I think it says a lot about Rosie that, you know, she still wants to get involved in the sport, and that, you know, deep down she still enjoys it, she still loves it. And you know, she was very, very downbeat towards the end of last year, but you know, she's started working on Cage Warrior shows, attending Cage Warrior shows, and you know, it's great to see her happy, and you know, she got really involved in our women's division. You know, worked really hard in getting the kind of contacts that allowed us to sign the women that we did, and there she is, you know, working on the show, commentating on those fights. You know, fighters who, you know, probably followed Rosie for years, you know, maybe might be their role model, you know, may even have trained or sparred or whatever, and there she is, you know, commentating, you know, and that's got to be great as well. And after being, you know, so down about the sport, seeing her in Copenhagen, she wrote, you know, a great blog about, you know, how she felt that she was home, and you know, like she you know, like she's born again. Do you know what I mean? And you know, it's great to see.
It's been a hell of a journey, you know. It's been a roller coaster. I think, I mean, looking back on it, and the reason I got into mixed martial arts, really, I never expected to be here. I never expected to be a professional athlete. I never expected to be competing in front of however many thousands of people. You know, that wasn't what I had in mind when I got into it. You know, in fact, that would have terrified me back when I started out. When I first found out about mixed martial arts, I wanted to do it to test myself, to see whether I could. I'd been involved in traditional martial arts for some time, since being a teenager, and I suppose I wanted to know whether I could fight, both on a physical and a mental level. You know, I wanted to know, you know, can I make any of this work? You know, what would happen, say somebody did randomly attack me, I mean, would I be able to make any of this work, or would I just completely fall apart? And I had no real idea, and that's the appeal of mixed martial arts, was being able to explore that in a relatively safe environment. I was like, well, I want to do that. I want to test myself out. I want to see if I'm capable of it, and that's why I got into it. And originally the plan was to have a couple of fights and then get on with the rest of my life, and you know, go and sit behind a desk for the next 40 years. Somehow, you know, I ended up going native, I suppose, if you like. As soon as I had those first few fights, it became a question of, this is really cool. I wonder how good I can get at it. And I suppose I'm still trying to get an answer to that question.
Of course, Rosie has legacy. You know, I do believe she's a pioneer in UK MMA. You know, she's the first female UK MMA fighter who broke through. You know, she, from local small shows to UK arena level shows to fighting around the world in, you know, various locations, to gracing the octagon. You know, she's been there, she's done it. You know, she's lived that life that so many people wanna live. Of course she has legacy.
I want to finish in this sport on my terms. And I think for me, that's on Cage Warriors.